Hey, hey, hey. Now we're all bloated.
No, I'm real confident now, so I talk.
Oh, it's real.
Bridal Banter Ep.1.
As I'm dying.
That's good. No, I didn't even need to clap.
As I'm dying. Hold on.
Yeah. I know. It was like when we were doing the intro, I had the biggest tickle in my throat. And so the whole time Trevor's talking, I'm like, hold it. And so when it was time for me to talk, I was like,
anytime we have to clear our throats, just get right here and
I got the sniffles.
Who's doing cocaine over there?
Oh shit! I'm on camera.
All right, we can't mess around too much because the cameras are on limit.
Okay,
well, all we
yeah.
have
All
to do is just stop it. And restart.
please
Yeah,
make
we
sure
can
those
do
bloopers come.
Oh, 100%.
Hearing that is hilarious.
Oh, Lord help us.
Well, here we are. Welcome to episode 1, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be here again.
We're back.
Again.
We back.
Still
We
be
did our
here.
intro episode.
Yep.
That was like 8 to 10 minutes, and now this is the real deal.
Yeah.
Ate some food,
Food and
feeling
all.
good,
Feeling
and
real
now
good.
we're ready to party.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Let's do it.
Dinner.
Well, so I guess this podcast we're kind of just tell you about us, talk about what we do, why we love the idea of doing this podcast, and bringing vendors together and creating a community. So
Who wants to go first?
somebody kick us off.
I can start it. I guess.
Okay,
Go ahead.
you love to kick us off.
That's
Let's go.
fine. Yeah, I'll get the ball rolling. So, like we said in the previous episode, my name's Andrew. Angie is my beautiful wife, and we got into the bridal industry in 2019. We purchased our first Volkswagen bus. I went to high school in California. Grew up in Atlanta. Ended up moving out to California for high school. Got into surfing and the whole West Coast vibe, and fell in love with Volkswagen buses. Never really thought anything about it. And then in 2017, we were on a vacation in North Carolina Beach and happened to see a Volkswagen bus that did the same thing. Thought it was a really cool idea. Kind of looked up some of their prices and then thought it was a great idea. And so a couple of years later, we were kind of kicking the bucket around, trying to think of things we could invest in to generate some revenue. And it just randomly came up one day that, hey, what do you think about us buying one of those Volkswagen buses and trying that, the photo booth thing out? So we started doing our research here in Atlanta. And at the time, I think there was only one other bus doing it.
Yeah, one, and they were not active at all. They
No, they just
existed, but they weren't active.
Just had a newborn pretty recently. So they weren't super active on their marketing and things like that. And so we decided to start looking for a bus. We ended up finding our first one on Auto Trader online. It was in Colorado Springs. We bought it sight unseen. It was a teacher out there that
was a teacher, so we trusted him.
yeah, and he sent
He
me
was a good
videos
guy,
of the
yeah.
he sent me videos of the bus running and him driving it and stuff. And so we ended up buying it sight unseen. And when COVID kicked in 2020, me and Angie tore the inside down to bare metal and started from the ground up and kind of built it into what it is today. And this is our 5th year doing it. We end up doing usually about 30 to 40 events a year, something like that.
Nice.
80 to 90% of our business is in the wedding industry. We do some corporate events and birthday parties, some things like that. But yeah, now we've been doing this for 5 years. It kind of ignited a passion for the wedding industry for us. Even though, working on weekends, you guys know this as well as anybody, is usually a drag. The fact that people around us are usually smiling and joking about the bus and having a good time. And the older people are usually asking or telling tales of, when I was in high school or when I was a kid, my parents had one of these and we drove it to Oregon and back, or we take it to Florida all the time.
That's awesome.
So being around like that kind of environment makes it a lot easier work day, I would say, for us. And so we kind of fell in love with the industry. And Angie had 10 years of management in the retail world before that. And so when we moved here to Sonoy, We were kind of looking for a new
You're just
venture.
gonna tell my story too.
I'm just kind of leading. I'm trying to lead into it. I realized.
I'm just gonna tell my whole background. I'm gonna have nothing to say. It's okay, guys. Keep going. I'm ready.
This is great. Keep going.
I realized I've been talking a lot, so I was like, I'm gonna try to segue into her explaining
by
a little
telling
bit.
her story. It's okay.
So this ended up leading us to the bridal shop that we sit in right now. So I'll let Angie kind of explain how those two worlds ended up colliding. But yeah, we've had the photo bus. Now we have two buses. Juniper and Magnolia are their names. It's been going great. That's been my focus while Angie's been tackling the bridal shop, and I'll let her kind of explain how those two came together.
Yeah, so I'm Angie. So when we started Juniper, like Andrew said, we fell in love with the wedding industry. We got engaged actually with Juniper. Andrew proposed. We were doing a marketing shoot in the middle of COVID. And so he proposed at that shoot. So we have photos with Juniper, which was really special for our engagement. And that led into me going dress shopping, kind of in the middle of COVID, like at the end swing of COVID. And being in the retail industry, I always worked for stores that were customer service based stores, very high expectations in the way we treat our customers. So I had really high expectations going into buying a dress because it's a huge purchase. It's a huge deal. It's supposed to be special and fun. And you see like the Say Yes to the Dress on TV where everybody's drinking champagne. It's a whole party. And like, I was so excited to have that moment for myself. And it actually ended up where I was not able to bring anyone except for my mom. They said that unfortunately due to COVID, you could only bring one person to shop with you. And so like, that was okay. My best friend was going to drive up and we told her cancel the trip, but, I still wanted to do it because I still needed to get a dress and we didn't know where COVID was going and when we were actually going to get married. So we went dress shopping and it actually ended up being a not so great experience.
Called me crying at one point.
Yeah, called my fiance at the time crying, called my dad crying. It was just like uncomfortable. It felt like I was unwelcome. It was kind of like a mean girl scenario where I like walked in the door and immediately felt like negative energy. But I was like, but I'm here to buy a dress and they have the designer that I want. And that designer's only carried in certain stores. So I went through with it anyways. Did not have my happy, fun time. It kind of like made me downswing from the excitement of wedding planning altogether. And ever since then, I've just been thinking about like, if I could do something where that would, like, if I could make a difference for a bride that would never have to go through that scenario, like, what could I do? And this opportunity came up. We moved to Sonoy. These buildings were being built and we were like, oh my gosh, we could open a bridal shop and I can change the game in the bridal industry.
Yep.
Like I can change the experience that brides get and make it special and make it fun and all the things that you see on TV that aren't so true necessarily. So essentially, since we decided to open the shop, I've unfortunately heard a lot of stories very similar to mine. And so it made me even more passionate about what we're doing. Like at the bridal shop, we are here to create a beautiful, exciting experience. And for every bride, that's different. Like for some brides, a beautiful experience is her and her mom. And they just come in and they want it quiet and peaceful. For some brides, it's her and her entire squad of 8 people. And guess what? We can accommodate that too. We can make it a party. We can have champagne. We can have charcuterie. It's just all about catering to what the bride's vision and dream is and knowing what that vision and dream is before they ever get here. And that's kind of what we're setting out to do with Sonoya Bridal is let's create a beautiful experience and let's kick off her wedding planning with something exciting and fun and beautiful instead of kicking it off with something that it is stressful. You're finding a dress that has such a huge importance, but like, let's make it fun. Let's make light of it and let's have a good time and celebrate her for who she is.
And I'll brag on her right now that so far we've only a few weeks into this, but the mothers of the bride that we've talked to and the brides that we've talked to have all reiterated that she's created that experience that they were kind of expecting. Whereas girls that have already gone to other stores have kind of said, you know, we were expecting it to be this. It turned out to be this. It wasn't a great experience. And then we came here and we finally had that, you know, core memory, bridal experience, picking out your dress being this huge moment in your life. So I'll brag on Angie that she's done a great job of creating that experience here.
It's because you care. Yep. Because you had that bad experience, you care a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
I never want anyone to go through what I went through, and I think that actually like brings value to what I'm doing because, like you said, I went through it, and so I'm also looking for when we were hiring, we were looking for people that understood like the importance of making the bride feel good, and that's where I heard other stories of brides unfortunately not having great experiences, and during the interview process is when we heard like, oh well, yeah, I kind of felt like I was like a burden to the person I was working with, and that's huge for us. Is like we have to make a difference and we have to make the bride feel incredible. And at the end of the day, I can only carry so many dresses in the store, and I might not have your dream dress, but at the end of the day, I want you to leave here being like, Sonoya Bridal was so incredible. I had so much fun. They didn't have my dream dress, but like that's okay. Like I can't carry 10 million dresses, and every bride is different.
Yeah. But every dress you do have is very unique.
Oh yes,
can only be available here.
All of them. So, little inside joke. They're all beautiful. They're very unique. We worked really hard on, and I promise I'll stop talking after this. I swear to God. But
talk away, girl. Talk away.
We worked really hard on choosing designers that are exclusive, that value the bride as much as we do, and that are willing to like make changes and make differences in their dresses so that it can accommodate the bride's dreams. Like we worked really hard, quality, material, the beadwork that goes into it. Like we chose designers that are just as passionate about what they do as we are about what we do. And I think it truly shows when you walk in the store, like the dresses jump out at you because every single one of them is so unique.
Oh yeah. I know that just from when we did the shoot, just being able to see them up close in person. Like, you know, you've been in this industry, you're around dresses, but like being around some of those dresses, I was just amazed.
Yeah,
like,
you can tell they pop out for sure. They stand out. Like I said, we're around dresses all the time, but the ones that you have, they stand out.
Thank you.
They're really nice.
Well, the way you guys shoot them make them look a lot nicer too.
We're just there to capture them, but like they're I mean they're super.
A lot of good quality and a lot of detail in them for sure.
Yeah, seeing them go from the hanger
and
to
the veils
film
too.
To film,
yeah,
is
the
very
veils
impressive.
too are super special.
Oh, fun.
So a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a veil dude. So
I love a veil.
I love the veil.
I love a good veil.
But speaking of putting it to film, interested to hear how Trevor got involved in videography.
How do I follow that up? Oh gosh, let's see. I was just a young boy, fresh, right in high school,
eating your cereal at the counter.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Actually, I eat cereal every morning before school. I had to at like 6 a.m. I was like just eating their phone.
Yeah, I can see that.
And now I can't stand breakfast. I don't even eat. My coffee is my breakfast. That's my favorite meal. But anyway, I actually the reason I got into film was actually because I wanted to be an actor first. And I actually did some acting gigs. I grew up in Florida. I was born in New Hampshire, but we quickly moved to Florida. I was young, and I grew up most of my time in Florida. And I think it was around middle school, like the end of middle school, where I was like, I want to be an actor, like a child actor or something. So my parents, they signed me up for acting classes, and I actually went to LA to do like some auditions for stuff. And I was not great. I was a shy kid. If you were to compare me to then versus now, it's two completely different people. I wouldn't even be doing a podcast. I would be terrified to do this. But I wanted to be this shy actor, and that didn't really pan out. I was in a Bell's ad though. A Bell's is a department store in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
So I was in a magazine. My grandmother still has it.
Nice. Very nice.
She always shows me every now and again. She's like, you know, I still have this. I'm like, yep, that's me looking like Justin Bieber. But when I think it was actually that shoot that got me interested in the behind the scenes stuff, because when I was on those shoots doing that, I was always looking at the photographer setting up and the lighting and like how they connected it to the computer and doing live edits right there. And I was like, this is really cool. Mm-hmm. So I just went down a rabbit hole from there. And I actually was inspired mostly by a YouTuber called Devin Supertramp. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. You've probably seen some of his videos. A lot of the stock footage that you see in Best Buy was done by Devin Supertramp. He does a lot of the action sports stuff and nature stuff. And I started following him like pretty heavily. And every week, every time he would upload, I would just be there. And he would upload a main video, and then he would upload a behind the scenes video. And the behind the scenes video is the one that I would go to first, because I'm like, nerdy like that. I want to know how everything was done. And then, just had a old camera sitting around, ones with the cassettes in them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Started messing around with that. And the moment that I actually got to control that camera and not have it be my parents controlling it, I was immediately hooked. I couldn't put it down. And I started asking my parents for a laptop for Christmas so I could edit and like all this stuff. And then they eventually they got me some gear and what I needed and helped me out there. And it's just been going ever since. And I started my business officially in 2016. And the first wedding that I did kind of happened accidentally. I was working at a restaurant, and one of my coworkers was getting married, and she asked me if I did that. She knew I was like filming stuff, but she asked me if I did weddings, and I was like, I've never done one before, but I can give it a shot. And as soon as I did, I was immediately hooked, because when I had put the edit together, which I got the edit done in like 4 days because I was excited. I'd never done it before.
Of course you did.
Horrible video.
I'm surprised you didn't say 48 hours. Let's be real.
Horrible video. I don't know if I still have it, but if I do, I'll send it to you guys. But it just absolutely terrible. But when I delivered it to the bride, she was just over the moon. Like texting me, calling me nonstop, complimenting me. And I had done it for free. So she was super thankful. And then, that eventually led to me like, I wonder if I could like make money doing this. So I charged $300 for the next one because a friend of hers was getting married, and that's kind of how it started. It was just word of mouth.
Now, was there ever a thought that you were going to go into like filmmaking, or was it you just started to dabble with film? And
so before I shot weddings, I didn't even have a second thought about filming weddings. Like I wanted to do more of like the film route, making movies and TV shows and go that route. And you could go to film school, but it was so expensive. It's like, Full Sail University is the big one down in Florida, and they are outrageous. But they have all the toys, like they hook you up. But I just didn't want to go the college route. I tried to do the community college thing and try to work my way up to that, the Full Sail, but I couldn't sit still in a classroom. I just wanted to go out and make stuff. Like I being in community college was taking away time from me actually creating. And I had to find that out pretty quick. I think I dropped out in like the first semester, and I just started picking up the camera again and making stuff for local community. And I eventually did some stuff for the restaurant that I worked at. And then again, that eventually led to the weddings. And then once I got into the weddings, I couldn't stop. And then I realized like, you could make some good money in the wedding industry. Like this is pretty lucrative.
Right.
So.
Very nice.
Do we have to pause and re-up?
Do we? Take a quick
wow, 2 minutes starts? Already? Yeah. Dang, folks.
Yeah.
We're running into a problem.
Yeah. Any problem.
Come on,
it's
Cannon.
called Angie Talks Too Much.
Come on, Cannon. Help us out.
Hello, Cannon. Answer us. Sponsored by. We might as well be sponsored by Cannon. I mean, look at the room.
It's definitely sponsored.
Look at it. Cannon.
Our
Cannon.
money,
Cannon. Cannon.
All right,
but
y'all.
Sponsored by.
We're gonna we're gonna unveil the curtains here. Our cameras have 30-minute record limits, and that's a Canon issue. So if Canon is listening, send help.
Send help.
Send
help,
cameras.
Cannon.
You can do it.
Just a few cameras. But yeah, so Trevor just wrapped us kind of getting us how he got into videography. I'm interested to hear how Emmanuel kind of got into photography.
Yeah, I was that kid that I love technology. So like I always wanted gadgets, and I was a kid that had like 2 PSPs and 2 Nintendo DS. So I always just loved just new gadgets. But like camera stuff, I always had a thing for. My dad had the big camcorder that you put on your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So like played around with that when they started making those little compact ones, And so then I think it was probably high school. My god sister had a camera, and so I would just play around with her camera, borrow her camera, and just do different stuff with it. And I really just connected with people with it. Like I've always when I was younger, I was a little bit more shy, but the older I got, I just love talking to people. And so I enjoyed that part of it. And so then I was like, hey, I can just start playing around. So I saved some money, bought my first camera, a little Canon Rebel. I think it was a T6 that I had. I think that's what we said. And so I started with that and just doing some stuff for friends and family. And so then for a couple of years, I probably just did a few family shoots every now and then. And then a friend of mine who was already in the wedding industry just asked me if I wanted to just come on, not even be a second shooter, just be there, kind of observe. And so I did that, and I was like, that was my first time actually being on that side of weddings. Like before then, weddings I just attended, like, just going. But that was my first time even thinking about photography in weddings. And so after that, I was like, oh, I love this. And so but still after that, there was probably another year and a half before I even just decided that I was going to even venture out into weddings. And so a friend.
Part 2 of episode 1.
I think it's part 3, but it's
part
fine.
3. Part 3. Sorry, part 3.
Yeah, I would just jump into you talking about them asking you to do their wedding.
Okay. But yeah, so I had a friend who she was getting married, and her mom asked me, she was like, can you, and we would love for you to do her wedding. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, this would be my first wedding. I have not done a wedding. And so they were good with that. Didn't charge them hardly anything. And I had a buddy of mine who's a good friend of mine. He has some background in photography and video. So he helped me with the wedding. And so like this really taught me how I honestly winged today. Like, as far as like, you don't know some about timelines and, I knew a little bit, but going into that day, I just went full in it. And
how nervous were you going into that? Because it's such a big thing to capture.
A wreck.
The photography.
I probably did not sleep the night before. I'm self-taught. Like YouTube University. I am a proud graduate of YouTube University.
Praise up YouTube University.
Like that, and just learning from other people, surrounding yourself with people who anybody who will show you, because you learn early on, like people who will and people who don't want to be bothered.
You'll learn.
And so that was something that, of course, we'll probably talk about it later on, but that was something for me. I knew if I stay in this industry, the opportunities that I'm going to help other photographers do.
Yeah.
Just for what I went through trying to get in this space. And so like going into it, I was like, and
I'm going to ruin everything.
Yeah. And so it's just like, it's so much that goes into it, like, and things that you learn in the moment, but this is somebody's wedding. Like this is, even
it's one and done.
That's it. And so, but I learned in that moment, where I fell in love with weddings, with those moments, with, like I said before, like the mother and the bride moments, like those moments, I fell in love with shooting weddings because of that. One of the reasons, but it's just, the way you can connect with people. So did the wedding, and surprisingly, the wedding turned out really good for my first wedding. And like Trevor said, it was just like, me, I'm like, gosh, like, but the texts, the calls that you get back from the clients and their parents, even me doing years of weddings later, they still talk about. And you know how sometimes you go back and you look at your work when you first started versus, and you be like, ugh, I of course it's totally different, but like I appreciate those moments even more now. So a little back and forth, but yeah, been in the industry probably about 4 going on 5 years now. On this scale, 2 years. Like me being almost, I say I'm full time, but I'm right there. I actually I enjoy not being straight full time photography, but also having other outlets. Like I just love being a part of different things, and so like that's still for me. Like my other job that I can work, but also being in this industry too. Just being able to connect with people and I'm go. I love just doing different things, working on different projects and stuff. But on this scale that I am, at least 2 years, 5 years total. And the wedding industry is a big part of my job. I still love lifestyle. I love being able to capture families. And, the biggest joy with that is starting off with a client who may get engaged. Then they invite me back to do their wedding.
Yeah.
And then after doing their wedding, they get pregnant. They invite me to do their maternity photos. Right. After that, they invite me to do their newborn photos at home. Then next thing you know, you're doing their first family shoot. Like that. That's for special. Me, that is the most special part of this job. Like
you're watching the family grow as you do your job.
You watch the family grow. Their kids learn who you are. Like, they look forward to doing photo shoots with you throughout the season. And like, next thing you know, they have another kid. Like, it's just like you grow with them and you're connected to them. You're a part of them. And like, so me starting off with being here, a lot of clients that I started off with, I have that opportunity to, like, years later, started off from engagement or their wedding. And now I'm able to capture their entire family, so that for me has been the biggest joy. And just being able to meet other people like this, like this. I love talking to people. I love being in the space with. I don't meet a stranger. Like, it's just, I talk to anyone, and so it's just allowed me to be in this industry, and just be able to connect. And just capture love, whether it's weddings, capture love in families, and other things like that.
Now, do you guys see yourself always kind of being in the wedding industry? Or, because for us, that's really like,
we're in it.
Obviously, the bridal shop, and with the photo booth bus, that's like 90% of our business. But with you guys, is that kind of just what the passion is now? Or could you see an avenue where you get led towards filmmaking or more lifestyle and things like that?
I get asked this question a lot, actually. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing weddings. Yeah. Because
I feel you.
I like that. I found a flow. I'm really good at them. I love, like you said, I love talking to people, meeting new people, hearing their stories, and some of the stories I've heard from couples is just like, man, it hits you right in the feels, and you just connect really well with them. And some of our clients that we've worked with in the past are some of our best friends now. Yeah. Like we have calls pretty frequently. We chat about the most random things, and it all stems from that very first Zoom call that we have. And one of the things that I started doing recently, or not recently, but for a while now, but is just setting up Zoom calls initially, because you connect so much better that way, and you can really get to know the couple on a much deeper level than an email. So I'm always like, from the very first Zoom call that we have, like, we're in it with you. Like, if you're gonna be going with us, I am 100% focused on you guys, and I'll do whatever I can do to keep you happy and also be your friend, lifetime friend. Yeah. And that's the coolest part about the industry, is you stay friends with your clients. So I don't think I'll ever stop doing weddings, but there are things that I want to do too. Yeah. Like I'd love to shoot short films and, do action stuff, like action sports. Like I do all kinds of stuff. I do real estate. You and I are actually doing a lot of the local events with the city. So we kind of just dabble in as the work comes, and there's nothing really I would say no to.
No.
Except for one thing. Maybe.
I think like you said, I don't see myself getting out of the wedding industry. Like I'm, people may call us crazy, but I love weddings. Yeah. Like, we love I think when people get out of it or get burned out of it, you're in it for, of course we're doing a job and you want to be paid for it. Yeah. But I think it's about your heart in what you're doing. So I'm a big thing on, if your heart is out of it, you shouldn't be doing it, because then that's going to be a reflection in your work. But the biggest thing in this industry is how you treat people. Like, and how your clients feel, how you connect with your people. And I think that's something all four of us have in common. Right. Like, with your story, like, I think that's something, because me and you have talked about that. Both of us come out of the, the corporate retail world, and customer service is a big part of our job. And so I look at that when I go to other places, other stores or vendors or any services that I use personally. That's something that I'm looking at, because that's something that I've worked in for so long, and that's something that's a big priority in my business, of how I treat people before I even do the service for them. So the biggest thing for me is not so much just what happens the day, whether you're shooting a wedding or just a family session. It's the soon as you reply back to, when they inquire with you, the experience that it takes for them to get to that, them, you talking with them, and during the session, post session. Like, I think a lot of those things are what connects you to your client, and that will make that relationship, build that relationship with, because you've made that connection with them. And so for me, with the wedding industry, like, I love that, like you said, we have so many different things that I love doing different projects now. Like, that's something like last year I prayed for this year. I was like, I really want to do, like, I do sessions and I do weddings, but I want to do other things. And so being able to, like, collab with y'all, collab with, the shops in town, doing different things for downtown Sonoya, like, those are things that I had, like, on my vision board for 2024, and then continue to thrive and, like, go to the next level with weddings, but, also explore other things too.
One of the best pieces of advice that I heard years ago, I took an online film course. That's actually what I forgot to mention in my little intro, is instead of going to an expensive film school, I paid for something called Full-Time Filmmaker, and it's an online course. And at the time it launched for like $300, so real cheap, right? But it was stacked. You had everything. And of all of the things that he taught, all the technical camera stuff, everything like that, he's like, the one piece of advice that I could give you over everything is to be a pleasure to work with. And that has been my motto since day one. Since I heard that, since I opened up the business, I need to be a pleasure to work with. I want to be the people that they remember most. I want to be the vendor that they talk about for years. Like, oh, Trevor did amazing. His team was unbelievable. Like, the video was great, but his personality and the way that he ran the day was unmatched. And that's a huge thing for me. So it goes with weddings and everything else that we do too. Like, I want to be the person that they remember, not just because we make good work, but the experience you had with us.
I think that's a good point too, because the wedding industry is really saturated to a certain degree. Like, there's a ton of business to go around. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be intimidated. Like, I can't put my foot in the door because there's so many people that already do it. But I think it's a very good point that you two made of, like, the thing you can do to set yourself apart. Like, there's probably other people that can take great pictures and edit them pretty well. There's probably other people that can take great video and edit it pretty well. But the experience they have with you guys, and same with me and Angie, I'd like to think, from the moment that we make contact with them, is we're going to go above and beyond to make the customer experience through the roof. Because even when you're working with other vendors, the experience, like the interaction you have with other vendors, you'd be amazed how far that goes for us when people are like, hey, do you have someone that's a DJ, or do you know someone that does catering or something like that? You don't think about those little interactions of someone just asking you, hey, can you help me grab this real quick or do something like that?
Like, I think you mentioned it. You said something about word of mouth. Word of mouth for me.
Everything.
Everything. That
80% of the business, word of mouth.
Easily. And still is. That when I started off, that is what got my business around. But even now, I mean, probably the last year, I've started to generate clients from, like, Instagram and stuff like that. But still, word of mouth.
It's so huge.
I mean, it's no matter if you are in a big town or you're in a small town. Word of mouth is, and again, the only way someone is going to mention you or even tell somebody else about you is it comes back from that connection, that experience that they had with you. If they had a bad experience with you,
it doesn't matter how good your pictures are. If they don't like you, they're not sharing about you. Yeah.
Not at all.
And that's so huge.
It is a very saturated environment, the wedding industry, but in a good way.
Right.
I think that I would like to see more people get in this industry because for me, like, I'm an open book. People want to learn how to film, like, do wedding filmmaking. Ask me anything. I will give you all the time you need. If you want to set up a meeting and just talk for 5 hours, and I'll teach you everything I know. But ultimately, it comes down to your work ethic and your ability to care really deeply about these people, about their clients, and their vision of the day. So, I think the more people in this industry, the better. I don't think it's, saturated in a bad way. I think it's saturated in a good way. And there is enough work for everybody. Weddings are a dime a dozen. No matter what, there's hundreds of thousands of people getting married every single year. There's no shortage of work.
And especially if they're in it for the right reason, like you said. Like, if their heart's in it and they're passionate about it, it's going to make a difference, and that's going to bring the word of mouth. to get people for the bridal shop in the door. But for the other businesses, like that gets you to the wedding because of what they heard about you and you as an individual. And I think that's what this room has in common is we are all so passionate about what we do, and we care so much about the people that we are serving on a daily basis. And we're passionate about helping others get to where we are too. Like we said, there's like, if I can make someone better at my job than me, I would love to do that, because guess what? That makes everyone better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing I'm most excited about, just kind of bringing this all for full circle, is I know the people in this room are going to continue to bring incredible people into this room to learn more about the wedding industry and talk more about the behind the scenes and kind of like lift the curtain for brides and grooms and discover like what your wedding can truly be, but also like help vendors that are trying to start their own business. They're too scared to leave the corporate world. Like there's another world out there for you. Like there's plenty of room for everyone. And I'm so excited for this podcast to be like a jumping point for the wedding industry in this area. I think it's going to be awesome.
To add to that, and like how you're, people wanting to get into this, but they're scared to maybe get out of the corporate world. Like there is a path. Like this is very attainable. It ultimately comes down to your work ethic, and if you're willing to do the work that most people are not willing to do,
right?
Which in wedding cases is work weekends. Like that's a big part of this.
You miss a lot
it's
of
your
days.
weekend.
You miss a lot of weekends.
I haven't seen an Auburn football game in 4 years. Oh man,
I've never heard that before. Never heard it.
But
It's first
love
time.
it. We love doing it so much that's worth missing the weekends to do.
100%.
So
Those smiles.
Yeah.
Being in the business of making people smile, it's all worth it to miss a few football games here and there.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten the people that have said, like, just reached out and been like, hey, the photo bus was such a hit. Like, everyone enjoyed it so much. I can't imagine, like, a videographer and a photographer, because you guys get so much more direct feedback of being like, the mom crying.
It's art.
Yeah.
Right.
It's literally
it's
art.
an art form
Yeah.
that's capturing their day. And so I can imagine how fulfilling that is for you guys, getting that of a mom being like, I just saw the pictures. I cried. She looked so beautiful. I look so beautiful. You guys captured the day. So that's really special connection.
I think the wedding industry has made me a very emotional person.
Oh,
in
yeah.
a good way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like I've technically been the emotional kid, but it's just like I cry in a minute. Like
listen. I have to go back and watch everyberry's vows. You know how hard that is.
No.
Editing.
And you're watching them.
Going back.
Oh,
no.
no.
I'm telling you, like
I know these people pretty well now from all the the meetings that we have. But man, I am tearing up 5 times a day going back to this edit.
Yeah. I did it. I did one of my best friends, her wedding this March. We've been knowing each other. We worked together, and I've been knowing her probably about 11 years. And so it's special when you do people weddings, as because you're working, but you're also not working.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a beautiful moment because you're capturing like this for your friend. And she did a first touch with her soon-to-be husband. They didn't do a first look, and so she literally looked at me. She's like, Manny, I'm about to cry. And I said, I know. And like she
Me too.
the whole time she's reading their vows or touching, she is bawling.
Oh.
And so the entire time I'm bawling.
Behind the camera.
I look at my
So many
second
times
and I
that
said,
happens.
keep shooting because I can't.
I can't see.
I literally couldn't.
Can't see.
My eyes, I was done. And so it was just like when she got done, like she said, you're probably crying as much as I am. I said, yeah, I probably am. Like, and it just, but that was somebody I know. It's total strangers. The same thing. I'm in the bridal suite crying.
Just crying.
Some people have some of the most amazing.
It
vows,
is
though.
like
they really do. They put a lot of thought into them. And dude, I'm like just choking up behind the camera because I'm listening, actively listening, and then I have to go back and listen to it 4 more
times as you edit.
Yeah.
What a unique industry to be in, that you guys get to have those emotional connections
Like
that often.
Like, and you know what?
You do.
The cool thing about video is there are moments that they didn't think were captured either.
Yes.
So like we're really big on miking as many people up as possible, because those are like when good emotions come out. And so many times, like if a grandma opens up the door and sees the bride for the first time, and she doesn't necessarily know that she's being recorded, or like
So you
isn't mic'd, they don't know who's mic'd up, and to get that emotion, that raw, real emotion, it's unbelievable. And then the feedback on that is like, it's amazing. Like, I didn't know you were you got this moment. Like, how did you get the crystal clear audio? How is it so good? And I'm like, it's the power of editing and being in the right place at the right time too.
When we first met, I went on YouTube and I watched a bunch of his films, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, when I get married, like, I mean, because it is like the way he just described, like some of the, in the industry, me being a photographer, I know a lot of filmmakers and videographers, and so you begin to, we have our own style and what we want.
Yeah.
And so like watching his videos, those moments you hear, you see, like, certain things are happening. And I mean, I know other people do it, but like, I'm bragging on Trevor. Like, it's just like,
but let's be serious. Bragging on Trevor.
It's just like the moments you hear, captured while you're watching that, and things that you would, like I said, even for me,
unexpected.
I had no clue what was playing, what was not, but you're watching that and you hear those moments that you wouldn't expect to hear.
So
and they come up.
It actually, when I first started doing it, it never used to be like that. I was that music video type where I had no audio, because when I first started out, you don't really have that much equipment.
Yeah.
And then you discover audio and you can mic people up, and it changes the game. And like, the music video thing is great for just starting out, but to tell the best story in the most authentic way, and that's our time limit. But anyway, in order to tell the best authentic story, you want to have as many people mic'd up as possible, get those little intimate moments. If they do a first touch, they don't see each other, but those little breaths, that they take, those heavy breathing, because they're so nervous and so ready to see their partner, and we capture those little details, and it changes everything. It creates so much more emotion when you capture that audio. So audio is huge.
In our wedding, even from a photography standpoint, there's one picture that I'm not even sure if our main photographer, the second shooter, got it, but I was walking down to start to get ready, and I leaned on the railing and I took a minute and just looked at everything and thought of how lucky I was to be where I was. And like, I remember having that moment and had no idea that anyone had captured it. And then she sent us the pictures, and there's a picture of me leaning on the railing with my like bag over my shoulder. And like, you can't see from the picture, but like, I have a tear in my eye because I was looking around at how beautiful everything was and just taking everything in. And I don't know if a photographer knew specifically that that's what was happening, but she just happened to take that little quick picture. And that's still one of my favorite pictures, because I remember that moment of being like, everything just coming together at once and being like, I'm so lucky that this moment's actually happening.
Yeah.
Right
I mean,
now.
it's just like it's the part of it is your head, so many things are happening. And so a lot of things, yes, we plan them out, but when you really get creative in the moment, you almost think ahead of moments happening. Like you're ready you put your brain on notice. It's hard to describe.
Right.
But it's just like, I mean, I know Trevor gets it. Like
you never want a moment to feel forced.
Yeah.
That's what I think you're trying to get at.
Yeah, like, you don't want it to feel forced, and you also like
it's almost like a happy accident that you knew was coming.
Yes. Yeah, and you're preparing yourself
and you prepared yourself for it, and you're there, and you know something's gonna happen, but you just aren't quite sure what that exact moment is, and then you got it.
So that moment that you're talking about, the photographer probably just glanced over, happened to see you there, and just quickly got the shot. And that happens so much.
All the time.
There are moments that just like happen off the fly, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta hit record, let's go.
It's almost like you have, you stay on.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just me, I love to blend in the room. So like, you don't know, at some moments, I don't want you to know I'm in the room for those reasons, and being able to just be aware of what's happening. Priority is always watching my bride, watching my groom, seeing what they're doing, but also paying attention to them emotionally. So like, there's, and I know we have other episodes discuss this, but it's just, there's moments when like you can see, when you, like I said, from the beginning, it's so important to communicate more outside of email. So like I do the same thing. I do video consultations. As soon as my clients book with me, they have my phone numbers. Like, they can call, text me anytime during the process. Like, if you have questions that doesn't even have to do with photography, but it has something to do about the wedding planning, call me. Like, we're in this industry for a reason. I can help you, or I can get the answer for you. and meeting before, your engagement session, stuff like that. And so like the day of, you've kind of developed this connection with them. And so even like for me, one of my grooms I had this year, he was super nervous day of, which I get, and so finally I knew that. And so like I took him from his groom suite with everybody. Him and I literally just walked the property. Like I told him we were going to do photos. We didn't do not one photo.
Yeah.
And like afterwards, probably like 2 weeks from the wedding, he called me. He was like, "Hey man, I never did get to tell you this, but he was like, you pulling me away during that moment." He said, "I know that had nothing to do with you taking pictures." He was like, you don't know what that did for me, but just by you paying attention to me at that moment, just seeing that I needed some air and I didn't even know I needed it. Right. He said that meant so much to me. He said, and that helped me the rest of the day. Yeah. And so it's just like you paying attention to your people, and just watching them in motion and knowing in those moments how to pivot, like knowing what we need to do different. Right. But also that sets you up for shots like that. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's almost like, for lack of better terms, like you guys get spidey senses for your couples.
Yeah.
Because you get to know them, and then you're like, oh, my spidey senses are tingling.
Yep. It happens all the time, and you kind of just feel the vibe of people, and then you're like, all right.
Well, and you already got to know them, so you sense it.
And then if they're really, sometimes when they're having a good time, they're like, let's go, and we're like, all right, let's go. Put the camera in her face. Yep.
But not to cut you guys off, let's restart from there because I can see the red dots, and I saw when they stopped.
This record limit on these Canons is really stressing us out. Canon. So if the conversation just abruptly cuts off at some point, it's
the words will keep going, but the video
might get a little dodgy.
Anyway,
but I think we were talking about how photographers and videographers can kind of, you guys learning about the people and meeting them beforehand. You guys almost, and Angie had mentioned that it's almost like a spidey sense that you can read body language and emotions and then know that these moments are kind of coming and to be ready to shoot something even if you don't know what that thing is that's coming.
Yeah, and that takes it takes experience. It takes a couple of weddings to get that sense, but it comes. The more that you do it, the more that you realize those moments, and you're the best way to capture them. You'll figure out the best way to capture them. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important to re-say the reason that you guys can do that and you sense it is because you get to know the people.
Right. Yes.
And that's like what is so important 100%. About all of this process is like, no matter who the vendor is, like work with vendors that care about you.
Yeah.
Because they're out there and communicating with people and getting to know them. It'll make a huge difference for your wedding day. And
I don't think
sensing.
If it wasn't for weddings, I don't think I would have ever come out of my shell. I really don't, because I used to never talk to anybody. Yeah. If you ask my grandma, this is so stupid, but when I was little, I used to spell my name when people asked me, in the air with my finger. It was the weirdest thing, that's
so shy.
That's how shy I was. I did not like talking to anybody, and I think getting into weddings really it forced me out of that because you have to communicate. You absolutely have to.
You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to talk to so many different type of people. Yep. Like you meet different type, different people, from every part of the country, world, different backgrounds. Like you meet so many different people. So and again, like if no one is going to talk about your work, you have to. Right. If no one's going to be able to talk about your business, you have to.
Right.
And so it'll force you out of your shell.
And they're probably already nervous about all these things anyways with their wedding, especially day of, that you guys have to be kind of that lane of comfort for them.
And that's a very good point too. Yeah. Like, they a lot of times, they will look for us for
I was going to say this can be a whole nother episode, but I know if you don't have a planner on your wedding day, I know who becomes planner number 1 and planner number 2. We'll save that for another episode.
Let me tell you, that's a whole episode.
That's a whole possibly 3 episodes. Should we do a hot take?
That's a whole entire series.
Yes. When you don't hire a planner, your photographer becomes your planner.
And those moments we're talking about become a lot more difficult to achieve.
Right. The special little moments.
Yeah.
We'll save
There's some
that
pain
for
in those
another.
eyes.
Can you tell that I've experienced that a couple
I see some
times?
pain in those eyes.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
I beg people.
Yes. Please
itching
hire
for
a planner.
episode 2. Let's go.
Or if you don't hire a planner,
At
hire
least
someone-
a day of coordinator.
and
At least.
And if not, have someone who is super organized.
Yeah. Be in charge.
Organized
Be in
best
charge.
friend that's willing to step up
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
that B word to some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody.
Lay down the line.
Because I don't want to be that
No.
person.
Yeah.
You know, and a part of me, that person can come out.
Yeah. If it has to.
And so that person I've spent 2 episodes talking about.
Yeah.
You may not get
He
that.
may not be there. He may be missing.
No, I love my couples and all, but if your gang ain't falling in line, there's a problem.
It's time to snap necks and cash checks, okay? That's it. But I think this is kind of what this podcast is geared towards is showing people like the behind the scenes side from the vendor point of view.
Yeah.
Showing the
Sure.
ways for brides and grooms to be more comfortable approaching their wedding and the whole process that goes into it. So I'm really looking forward to future episodes, bringing in some guests and doing some interviews with people that have some different experiences than we do, and maybe good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving voices to other vendors and learning more about their industry because, like,
Yeah.
we have so much to learn. Like,
Yeah, there's
what goes
100%.
into being a florist? Like, I feel like that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Another form
Wedding
of art.
cakes.
Wedding cakes. Yeah. I
And, like,
mean,
even planners, like,
can-
where do they start?
who
Like,
makes
planners.
cakes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you
Planners,
begin?
Like, where it's so, even thinking about just beginning to plan, like, where do you begin?
What's
as
the first step?
Yeah. I would love to know.
Yeah. So we have a lot of fun episodes coming up.
Yeah.
Hopefully the cake person brings cake.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just saying.
just
Whoever
slide,
that person
slide that
is,
in there.
Excuse me.
I love a strawberry cake.
Can we
Oh.
start the episode off of us eating a
Yeah,
cake?
just eating with the noises. You guys are gonna love that
Yeah,
So
episode.
we're
also
also looking for a coffee vendor and
Yeah,
an ice
coffee
cream
vendor.
vendor and
Who brings samples to podcast recordings?
Yeah,
bakeries. Yeah.
a little bit of everything,
So-
especially food vendors. We're down for it.
With that being said, again, if you want or if you're interested in being on the podcast, please send us a DM. We're trying to do weekly
Weekly,
episodes.
yeah.
So the door's always open. Just
Yeah.
shoot us a DM and we'll be happy to host you.
Yeah, make sure you listen to the podcast. YouTube, you can watch it.
Like,
Listen on
comment, subscribe.
Spotify.
Yeah, follow
Yeah.
all of us.
Please.
Yeah. Follow Bridal Banter Pod is the handle for everything across the board, and then you'll find our personal accounts linked to that. So follow all the accounts and join the Bridal Banter Pod Squad.
Join
Not
the
letting it
banter.
go. It's still going to be the Pod
Bridal
Squad.
Banter
I
to the
love
moon.
Pod Squad.
The Pod Squad. It's not going away.
Pod
Sorry.
Squad to
I'm
the moon.
I'm sticking with it. But thank you for listening, everybody.
Yes,
and
thank you very much.
Come back next week and the next week and the next week.
See y'all next week.
Goodbye.
Peace.
Love it.